Since we're talking about IT, let's bring in two subject matter experts as well. There's been a fair amount of growing concern and some reports, some social media posts as well indicating that perhaps the US could be thinking of imposing tariffs on services that are coming from India as well, including, of course, IT services. Now, this, of course, could be a massive, massive move for India. Not just this, there is a new bill that has been introduced in the US. It's called the HIRE Bill, Halting International Relocation of Employment. And this bill is talking about a 25% tax on any payments which are being made to Indian vendors for the services that they're rendering to US companies. Now, is this significant? Should one be worried about this? Well, let's ask Nikhil Narendran, partner at TMT Trilegal, as well as Ganesh Natarajan, chairman at GTT Data Solutions. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining in. The good thing is that we have that statement from the US president, right? Otherwise, this news of a new potential bill being introduced in the Senate, it could have made the market very, very nervous. Nikhil, let me open with you. I don't know if you've seen the details of this bill. It talks about several penalties, penal positions as well. But these bills, such bills have been introduced in the past as well. Should one be worried?
Look, I think in the current scheme of things and the way in which rhetoric is driving actual decision making, I think we should be cautious at this point of time, because we have seen in the past several instances where similar moves were proposed, but it did not really materialize. But given the current scenario, it's very difficult to say one way or the other. Having said that, there are a few things that we need to keep in mind here. The whole WTO ecosystem, which currently has a moratorium on taxation of digital services, is about to be relooked at in March of 2026, which means that generally when you provide services online, for instance, your services that you subscribe from Microsoft and other companies, they're not taxed in, let's say, in India, right? It's taxed only in the US. So many countries like India and Indonesia and various other countries have been demanding that this moratorium should be relooked at, and India and other countries should be allowed to tax this as well. So US has always opposed this. And if you remember, sometime back, we had this equalization levy concept, which was known as a Google tax, which is also applicable on these companies. Due to US pressure, apparently, we revoked that position. Now, all these things will come back on the table, and it's likely that we will now look at a renewed angle as such when it comes to taxation of digital services. This will obviously have far-reaching implications, also from the perspective of the General Agreement in Trade and Services, the GATS as it's known as. And look, it's a different regime that we are looking at right now.
Yeah, but as of now, just to confirm, because we have a treaty with the US, there is absolutely no withholding tax or any other format of tax that is levied by the US on Indian IT services companies. Correct, Nikhil?
So I think there is no direct impact on IT services per se, but if it's performed in onshore in US, there are tax implications.
Yes.
There are also aspects wherein high visa fees are often levied as a disincentive for provision of work from US itself, but directly when you're providing services, there is no direct impact.
Right. Gentlemen, morning. Mr. Natarajan, if I can come to you. How do you think about this? Is this possible? Are services tariff taxed anywhere? As Nikhil said, if you do work onshore, then of course you pay tax there. But for services rendered out of India, consumed in the US, right? I don't think there is any tax which is paid, anywhere. What is your sense? How will this play out?
No, you're absolutely right, and I don't think it's very likely. And I think, as the anchor was mentioning, there have been many attempts in the past to do these outsourcing bills, etc. And what I think Senator Moreno has tried to do is something very similar. But in that sense, I think the first point of resistance will come from American corporates themselves. I mean, every significant corporation in the Fortune 500, and indeed most of the IT CEOs who were at dinner with President Trump the other day, I think they all have huge investments in India, in GCCs, what is Global Competency Centers. There are over 1,600 of them in India. Plus, of course, the fact that a lot of their work is done by Indian companies. So I don't think this is going to happen in a hurry. So I'm pretty sanguine about that. And you're absolutely right. I mean, if there is a tax on Indian companies for exporting stuff, it's almost a double tax because we also pay tax in the US. Yeah. And if the tax as is proposed by Senator Moreno's bill, if that is on the company which is doing the outsourcing, that's really a double whammy for them. So I find it very unlikely that this bill can go through in its current format.
Yeah.
However, having said that, I think we need to be wary, because till such time as somebody said, I mean, we wake up in the morning and it's good news all over. We have to be wary, because anything can happen. And from very conservative Republicans and even White House advisors like Pete Navarro, for instance, we have to be wary of what might come next, but at the same time, nothing to panic about.
Do we have, so for, say, a large IT services company out of India, any listed company, right? Out of 100 rupees in revenues, how much is work done in the US, and how much, because offshoring in that sense is also a bit of a loose term, right? Some stuff is done outside, some stuff is done in the US itself. Do we broadly have that proportion for the industry, Mr. Natarajan?
See, you have to look at it in volume terms and value terms. So in volume terms, I would think that in a mature outsourcing contract, almost 75 to 80% of the volume of work is done offshore, which could roughly translate to maybe 40% or 50% of value being generated in the US and the rest of the value in India, because of the price differential, as you can imagine. But having said that, I think there is a significant amount done offshore, which is the advantage both to the company as well as, of course, to the client. And which is why I'm saying that will probably continue.
Well, let's see. Just hope some of the social media posts, including one that came in from Laura Loomer, that this remains sort of views on the periphery and nothing more than that. Before we let you gentlemen go, Mr. Natarajan, you're an industry veteran. Must ask you this. And beyond all this, taxation is fine and what changes, what doesn't. But large Indian IT services companies, from an investor standpoint, are also facing a bit of a real existential growth issue. With what's happening, the kind of AI disruption that's happening, and investors are asking tough questions because growth is just not coming by. How do you see this playing out over the next, say, 2-3 quarters?
I think 2-3 quarters is going to be probably, tepid at best, because it's not just AI, it's also automation, it's also a demand issue at this point of time. In the medium term, I don't think there's a problem, because most Indian companies are very much ahead of the curve when it comes to mastering AI as service providers, as well as using AI ourselves in our work. But even in our own company, GDT Data, our reliance on data engineering and AI is very, very high. And we're seeing lots of positive signs in the market. But yes, it'll take some time for the next sigmoid, if you will, to take off. But once it takes off, I think it'll be business as usual. So I'm pretty optimistic about the future.
All right, Nikhil and Mr. Natarajan, thank you very much. Short conversation, but we need your expertise as the story develops. If it develops, I hope it does not. And, it's just that reports and stuff which has happened in the past but doesn't go anywhere. Thank you very much, both of you.